There's a kind of silence that doesn't scream, it lingers. It waits. It watches you from across the room when everyone else has moved on. And for Alina, that silence lived inside her chest for 5 years. Ever since the accident that shattered everything she believed in, she'd become a quiet observer of life rather than a participant. Her world had color, but it had lost its warmth. She lived in a small, seaside town, in a modest cottage inherited from her grandmother, walls full of stories, shelves lined with half-read books, and a garden that bloomed despite the sorrow woven through her days. Alina was in her early 30s, graceful yet guarded, with a calm presence that often made strangers feel they'd known her forever. She spent her mornings at the local library where she worked, cataloging stories she no longer believed in, until he walked in. Aidan wasn't from the town. He looked slightly out of place in his tailored coat and worn leather boots. Mid-30s, thoughtful eyes, a writer by profession, or so he claimed, though he carried himself like a man with too many secrets. He said he was looking for silence. A place to write. But Alina knew better. He was running from something. They didn't speak much at first. Just polite greetings and the occasional exchange about books. But there was something in the way he lingered near her desk, how his eyes scanned not just the shelves but her face, like he was searching for a specific line in a story that had yet to be written. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the library windows and most visitors had left, Aidan approached. He held out a book, The Silent Seekers. "Have you read it?" he asked. Alina's heart stilled. That book. It was rare. Old. And it shared the same title as this very chapter of her life. She shook her head. "No, but I've always meant to." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we could read it together." Their meetings became frequent. Pages turned slowly. Time even slower. Stories bled into real conversations, and before long, Aidan began telling her things he hadn't told anyone, about the fiancé he lost, the novel he couldn't finish, the guilt he still carried. And Alina, for the first time in years, found herself listening not just out of politeness, but because her heart was beginning to wake up again. But nothing is ever that simple. One rainy night, Aidan didn't show up. His phone rang unanswered. And when Alina finally found the note he left tucked inside their shared book, her fingers trembled. "I never meant to disappear. But some ghosts don't like being ignored. I have to face mine. If you wait, I'll find my way back." Alina kept the note folded in her coat pocket like a fragile secret, creased at the edges, damp from her hands, but never unread. Days passed without Aidan. The library felt colder. Even the books seemed quieter. At first, she tried to dismiss the ache in her chest as concern, nothing more. But when you've spent years closing yourself off, you don't notice the cracks forming until someone slips through. And Aidan had done just that, softly, patiently. Then vanished. Alina sat at her desk replaying their conversations like unfinished chapters. There were things Aidan had said that now echoed with deeper meaning. Mentions of a lake house, a brother he never spoke to, a fire that wasn't just metaphorical. She had assumed he was healing, like her. But maybe he was hiding. She hadn't told him everything either. Not about her fiancé, Daniel, the man who never made it home one icy December night. Not about the guilt she carried for the argument they had hours before his accident. Not about the way she still woke up expecting to hear his key in the door. So maybe, she thought, they were both seekers, not just of peace, but of permission to feel again. Then one afternoon, while sorting through returned books, she found another message. Tucked into the same copy of The Silent Seekers. A single line written on the inside cover, "You asked me once what I was afraid of. It's not the past. It's being seen." It wasn't signed, but she knew. It was Aidan's handwriting. Her pulse quickened. Was he nearby? Watching from a distance? Later that evening, she walked to the cliffs overlooking the sea, their place. The wind pulled at her coat as waves thrashed below, wild and untamed, just like her thoughts. She felt him before she saw him. "Aidan," she called out into the wind. He stepped out from behind the stone archway, soaked and breathless, as if the storm itself had thrown him back into her life. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "I thought leaving would protect you. I didn't want you to see the broken parts." Alina's eyes welled. "But those are the parts one understands the most." They stood in silence. Not the painful kind she had known before, but a shared stillness, heavy with unsaid things. "I'm not asking you to fix me," Aiden said. "Just stay while I try." She didn't answer with words. She reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. But as the rain softened and their fingers laced, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the woods behind the cliffs. A shadow tied to Aiden's past. A chapter not yet closed. Aiden hadn't said a word about the man in the woods, and Alina hadn't asked. But the presence haunted her. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching, someone who didn't want Aiden found. The next few days passed in quiet unease. Aiden stayed in the guest room of her cottage, and while their bond had grown, so had the shadows between them. He seemed more guarded, waking up from nightmares he refused to explain, pacing the floor at night, his phone turned off and hidden in a drawer. One morning, over coffee in the kitchen, Alina asked gently, "Are you running from someone?" Aiden didn't look up. "From something. Someone who won't let go." He told her, finally, about his brother, Marcus, older by 2 years, controlling, brilliant, and cold. Aiden had followed him into business years ago, back when he was still trying to please everyone but himself. But after the car crash that killed Aiden's fiancée, Lena, things changed. Marcus blamed him. Said he was spiraling. Said Lena's death was just the beginning of Aiden's self-destruction. So Aiden disappeared. Left the city. Cut ties. But now, it seemed, Marcus had found him. Alina listened, absorbing every piece of the puzzle. She had questions, so many, but she could see the weight it took for him to speak at all. That afternoon, she went to the library to clear her head. The familiar quiet soothed her nerves, but when she returned home, her heart sank. The front door was open. Inside, nothing was broken, but Aiden was gone. His bag, his coat, even the book they'd shared, all missing. But there was something new. A note taped to the mirror, "He won't let me go. I can't put you in danger. Don't follow me." Alina stood frozen, her reflection blurred by the tears forming in her eyes. That night, she sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, staring at the sea. The waves seemed louder now. Angrier. She opened the book he left behind. The Silent Seekers. A photo fell out, Aiden and a woman with dark blonde hair and soft eyes. Lena. On the back, in faded ink, a message, "I'll always find you, even in silence." Alina's heart cracked. Those words weren't for her, but they felt like they belonged to both of them now. And just then, headlights appeared at the end of her drive. A sleek black car. A tall man stepped out. Sharp suit. Cold expression. Marcus. He walked up to her porch slowly, deliberately. "You're Alina," he said. "I'm here to take my brother home." But Alina didn't move. She didn't flinch. "I think he already found it," she replied. Marcus didn't ask permission to come inside, he walked past Alina like he still owned everything his brother had ever touched. The air in the cottage turned heavy with tension. Alina stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, her eyes locked on the man who seemed to leave frost in his wake. "Where is he?" she asked, voice steady despite the storm behind her ribs. Marcus smirked. "With me. For now. He came willingly, eventually. He knows what happens when he tries to run." The statement hit like a slap, but Alina didn't flinch. He didn't run. He was healing. Marcus looked around the cottage with thinly veiled disdain. "Healing? Is that what you call this?" He tapped a finger against the Silent Seekers on the side table. "That book. That fantasy. You think that's real life?" Alina stepped closer. "You're not here because you care about him. You're here because you can't control him anymore, and that terrifies you. Something shifted in Marcus's face, something cold and dangerous. I'm here because my brother is mentally unwell. You think he told you everything? He didn't tell you about the time he was hospitalized after Lena died. The breakdown. The drinking. The fire at the lake house? That wasn't an accident. The room fell deathly still. Alina's heart pounded. You're twisting everything. You keep his shame alive so you can keep him small. But he's not broken. He's just scared. Marcus leaned in, lowering his voice. You have no idea what he's capable of. He ruins everything he touches. Including the people who love him. Alina stared back. Then why are you the one ruining him now? Before Marcus could answer, the door burst open. Aiden stood there, soaked from the rain, breath ragged. His eyes darted between them. Enough, he said. Marcus turned, surprised. Aiden, no, Aiden snapped. You don't get to speak for me anymore. He stepped forward, visibly shaking. I loved Lena. And yes, I lost control after she died. But you made it worse. You made me believe I deserved to stay broken. Marcus scoffed, but Aiden didn't back down. You burned down what was left of me and called it help. Alina moved beside Aiden, her presence grounding him. He reached for her hand, and this time, he didn't tremble. Marcus's voice hardened. You're making a mistake. Aiden looked straight at him. Maybe. But at least now, it's my mistake to make. Marcus stared for a long moment, then stepped back toward the door. Don't call me when it all falls apart. I won't, Aiden said. The door slammed shut behind Marcus, but the silence that followed was anything but peaceful. Alina turned to Aiden, her eyes filled with everything she hadn't said. Are you really ready to stay? Aiden met her gaze, and his voice cracked as he answered. I don't know who I'll be without the past chasing me, but I want to find out. With you. Alina thought Marcus was the storm, but the real storm came after he left. The next morning, Aiden seemed lighter. For the first time, he cooked breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee strong enough to startle the dead. They laughed over burned toast and listened to music on her old record player. For a few hours, everything felt real. But as Alina cleaned the kitchen, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message was brief, you don't know the whole truth. Ask him about Lena's journal. Her hands froze over the sink. She didn't tell Aiden. Not yet. Instead, while he stepped outside to take a call, she slipped into the guest room, where his duffel bag sat zipped near the bed. She hesitated. This wasn't who she was, snooping. Distrusting. But something inside her screamed that she had to know. Inside the bag, beneath clothes and scattered notes, she found a small leather-bound journal. The name Lena etched faintly in the corner. She sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding, and opened it. The entries started sweet, memories of her and Aiden, dreams of travel, fragments of poetry. But as the pages turned, the tone darkened. He's not the man I fell in love with. He shuts down. Blames me. I don't feel safe sometimes. I want to leave, but I'm scared he'll break completely. Alina's breath hitched. Her hands trembled. It didn't sound like the Aiden she knew, but it was Lena's voice, raw and terrified. When Aiden returned, he found her sitting in silence, the journal in her lap. You read it, he said flatly. She looked up, tears brimming. Why didn't you tell me this existed? Because I didn't want you to think I was him, the version of me she saw at the end. He stepped closer, voice shaking. I never hurt her. Not physically. But emotionally? I was broken, and I dragged her down with me. I stopped listening. I stopped showing up. I lost her long before the crash. Alina stood, backing away. You said she died in an accident. She did. His voice was hoarse. But she left the house that night after an argument. I told her I wished she'd leave if she didn't believe in us anymore, and she did. Into a snowstorm. Aiden dropped to his knees, head in his hands. She was gone before I could apologize. Alina stared at him, torn between compassion and fear. Everything they'd built now felt like it was balancing on a thread. Did you bring me into your life to make peace with hers? She asked. He looked up, eyes red. No. I love you. But I don't know if I deserve a future when I destroyed my past. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't shared. It was suffocating. Outside, the storm clouds gathered once more. That night, neither of them slept. Alina lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the journal tucked beneath her pillow like it might bite. Aiden had retreated to the porch, wrapped in an old blanket, his silhouette a quiet statue against the distant thunder. By morning, the rain had stopped, but nothing inside the house had cleared. The silence wasn't angry. It was fragile. Alina found him sitting barefoot in the wet grass behind the cottage, staring out at the gray sea. She sat beside him, not touching. Just breathing with him. I didn't want to be him again, Aiden whispered. The man who couldn't love without ruining everything. But maybe that's all I know how to be. No, she said. You're someone who ran because you thought you deserved pain. But running doesn't heal anything. It just buries it deeper. Aiden turned toward her, the salt of his tears indistinguishable from the mist in the air. I want to be better. For you. For myself. But I don't know how. You just did, Alina said, softly. You told the truth. He leaned forward, forehead resting against hers. Do you still want me, now that you know? She closed her eyes. I want the man who can hold both his guilt and his hope. I don't need perfect. I need real. For a moment, the wind stilled. And in that stillness, he kissed her, not to escape the past, but to claim the future. The weight began to lift. But just as they stood, heading toward the house, a familiar figure emerged at the edge of the woods. Marcus. Again. But this time, something was different. He wasn't dressed in his crisp suit. He looked pale. Defeated. He held up his hands. I read the journal. I found it in the car. I thought it would prove something. But it didn't. It broke me. Aiden stepped forward, shielding Alina slightly. Why are you here? Marcus hesitated, then said, to say I'm sorry. For everything. I made you my project. My failure. I controlled you because I couldn't fix myself. He dropped a small box at Aiden's feet. Inside, a silver locket. Lena's. I kept it. I told myself I was protecting her memory. But I was really punishing you. Aiden picked it up slowly, thumb brushing the delicate metal. You can't fix what you did, he said quietly. But maybe, this helps. Marcus gave a single nod, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the fog like a ghost finally released. Alina took Aiden's hand. The sea crashed behind them. The wind pushed forward. They didn't look back. 6 months later, the cottage looked different, warmer, lived in. The cracked floorboard by the fireplace had been fixed, and wildflowers grew along the edge of the porch. The sea still roared like it always had, but inside, everything had changed. Aiden stood in the kitchen, humming softly as he stirred a pot of soup. The radio played an old song Lena used to love, and for the first time, it didn't hurt to hear it. Alina entered behind him, cheeks rosy from the wind. The bookstore called. The Silent Seekers is going to their fall collection. He turned, surprised. They picked it? They said the emotional honesty hit them hard. People need stories like that now. They shared a quiet smile. The story they co-wrote, half fiction, half truth, had become something bigger than their pain. Marcus had returned to the city. After that final morning, he hadn't reached out again, but Alina received a letter from him last week. In it, he admitted himself into therapy. Said he finally wanted to stop using other people's damage to hide his own. It wasn't closure, not fully, but it was a start. Aiden placed the ladle down and walked over, pulling Alina into a soft hug. "You saved me," he murmured. She pulled back just enough to look at him. "No. You saved yourself. I just stayed close while you remembered how." They stepped outside to watch the sunset. The sky blazed orange and gold, the wind carrying a chill that felt like change, not fear. Aiden took the locket out of his pocket and opened it one last time. Inside, a photo of Lena and a tiny folded note she'd written years ago, "Forgiveness is freedom." He smiled through tears, then closed the locket and let the wind carry the moment away. Alina slid her hand into his. "So, what's next for us?" Aiden looked at her with the same awe he once gave the ocean. "Whatever we want. And this time, we won't run from it." They didn't need to speak after that. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of love, of healing, of the life they were finally choosing to live.